Bleep bleep. What is up, ninjas? My name is Sam World, and today we're going to be talking about how to create a tech house guitar-like bass line. Now, this question comes from a couple of you guys that supported my pack, Deceiver, which is a tech house sound bank sample pack construction kits. Now, in the construction kits, there was a bass that it wasn't in the presets, and people were asking me, "Yo, Sam, I love that bass. How can we get it?" Now, sadly, the reason it's not in the presets inside of Serum is because it requires a bit of post-processing, and today I'm going to be teaching you guys how you can achieve the same sound in your productions, utilizing, again, just a simple saw wave. And again, we try to make it to sound like a guitar, so we're going to utilize essentially guitar amps, guitar-like distortions to get it as close to that as possible. There is a bit of a catch we have to do in order to not mess up the whole bass line, but as long as you understand that you should separate your bass from your sub when you're going to be doing stuff like this, I believe you should be good to go. So join me today, guys, as we do that. Now, as always, if you want to support the channel, you can head over to evilsounds.com. I'm in a hurry because my camera's about to die, guys, but I do have a new pack coming out soon. I've run into some issues, and I'm trying to get more one-shots into this new Deceiver pack. It's going to be essentially a supplementary pack, not as big as Deceiver, more samples based, of course, more construction kits, so you guys can utilize those to help make the music that you want, help aid your tracks, use it as supplementary information. But with that being said, let's get straight inside of Ableton, where we're going to learn how to create that guitar-like tech house bass that you've been wanting to do. Alright, guys, and welcome inside of Ableton. Now, the first thing we need to do to achieve this guitar bass is pick a wavetable or pick a sound source that just has that vibe already. And the saw is going to be the best one to do that. A square is too heavy, but a saw is going to have a bit of a vibe to it, similar to a bass guitar, which is what I believe a lot of people want. They don't want a distorted guitar like in death metal, like but again, a bass guitar that has a nice groove to it, that sort of vibe. So with a saw, without a filter, sounds like so, but if we put a filter on that, it's sounding close to sort of a guitar, so we're just going to lower this down a bit more. We're also going to lower the sustain down and put a bit of decay. Around there seems to be fine. Just a little bit of dynamics there so that there's a bit of volume reducement to give a bit more of a punchier vibe to it. You can definitely go like this if you want. It all depends on the song you're working on, if the MIDI is held long or if it's like playing super fast like so. Okay, once we have that, we are pretty much done inside of Serum, as we can achieve that guitar vibe inside of Serum. Maybe there's a way, but personally, me, I like to do it this way. So what we're going to do is go into the audio effect rack, and I'm using this because this is going to help me essentially separate away my sub from the top part of the bass. So we're just going to create two chains there. One of them will be called the mid to high, if you want to call it that, and then we're going to have our sub here. Now we're going to utilize an EQ with a very harsh cut, and if you're all about like preserving the phase of a sound, then definitely, you know, go in and use your linear phase EQs and whatnot. However, for me, I'm not that much of a perfectionist, so I'm just going to go here. And I'm just going to grab it there. I forgot to put mono legato on the bass, so let's just add that real fast. Okay, from there, we're just going to copy and paste this guy into our mid-high, and then we're just going to switch this into a high pass instead of a low pass. Okay, from there, it's simple. We're just going to hit it with, again, this guitar-like distortion. So the first thing you have, and the most obvious one, is to utilize an amp. And my favorite one in the amp will be the blues. The moment we put that on our mid-high and we put it in the sub, so let's get it to the right spot. We're going to put the guitar amp over here. Okay, pretty cool. And then we're just going to get rid of the highs that are added from it. So we're just going to go in. Now it's starting to sound more like a funky guitar. Now if I unsolo that. Okay, now I can take off and on just to audition before. You can see the difference that it makes. Now the reason we separate the sub away from the mid-high is that if I put this directly on the channel instead of doing this, you know, it might work, but again, we want constant, powerful low end. We don't want it to get fucked. So a lot of times these amps might mess your sub up. So using a dedicated sub is good. The reason I use the audio effect rack is I just like to keep things cleaner. So I'll call this like bass guitar and save it as a preset. And then from there, you know, you can essentially start to work on defining like maybe a different saw vibe. But this is going to be essentially the clue. You know, you're kind of like, whoa, man, that's a nice guitar you got there. How'd you do that? Now, it's just, again, that. Now, the other effects we also have inside of Ableton, because we can achieve different vibes, but essentially that's what we're doing, is utilizing the pedal, which is a new effect in Ableton Live 10. Now, the pedal is similar to the amp in a way that it's going to distort, but it does it in a different way. We have 3 types of distortion. We have overdrive, distort, and fuzz. So you can play around with each one, but the moment you put it on your mid-high, you're going to notice we're going to get sort of like a different vibe to it. Now, the way you're going to play with this is the gain is going to be essentially, think of it as your dry and wet for the distortion itself. You do have a dry and wet down here, which works differently as well, but this is going to be mainly like how hard you're pushing that distortion, the dry and wet for. The problem with this stuff is you got to be really careful is the volume. So in the chain here, we do have a volume that we can move up and down depending on if we feel like too many mid-lows have been added. But from there, we're going to go with maybe a distorter. Oh. There we go. That one's giving us a little bit more control over the amp, of course, but then we can kind of audition it. Now, this one sounds cool, but the problem is there's too much mid-lows. I mean, I do have my sub there, but as you can see, it's so quiet compared to my new bass added. So I can pull that down. Okay, so you kind of get the idea there. Now, that's going to be the pedal, and it's as easy as that. You just mess around with it till you find something you like. They're all going to give you sort of like a guitar vibe, and it's up to you to kind of decide what you want it there. If you do want some of the highs added back in, you can definitely go like so. And finally, guys, the last effect we have that we can possibly use is the cabinet inside of Ableton. Now, I honestly don't know what this effect is about. I'm assuming it's meant to emulate sort of like hearing the sound going through a speaker or something. But according to Ableton, 1 times 12 means 1 12-inch speaker, and then you have up to 4 12-inch speakers. But it does alter the sound and give it a bit more of a bassy vibe. So you can mess around with those. Of course, you want it to be mono, not dual. And then so those are going to be a couple of the ways to achieve that guitar-like bass line. You can also consider like layering a real bass on top of a sub or on top of a saw bass layered with a real sounding bass. But this is one of the ways that we can achieve sort of like a synth bass sound that sounds like a guitar, has those characteristics by, again, separating your sub away from your mid-highs and targeting the mid-highs with a bit of guitar-like distortion and effects. I mean, this is just scraping the bottom of the barrel, guys. There's so much more on top of it. Like, you can use guitar rig if you feel like it and play around with that. You can start to do other stuff, of course, with it, but to get that tone, to get that guitar vibe, try this out. That's the best way to do it. This is the way you achieve that sound that you guys saw in the Deceiver pack inside of some of the construction kits. And I hope that this helps a lot of you guys out that were asking that question. With that being said, guys, I'll catch you guys tomorrow for another video. You guys take care, and you have an amazing day.